Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and welcome to the Great Books course of the Wisdom School of Ubiquity University. We're in our final trimester of 2016, and you may recall the last 2 months I was lecturing on the Analects of Confucius. If you missed those live calls, the recordings are up on our website, and the link is available in the syllabus on the website. Today, we're going to begin our final set of 2 lectures on a book that is not that well known, but carries one of the deepest layers of wisdom emanating from the Chinese civilization and the Taoist religious philosophy, The Art of the Bedchamber. And so I am very delighted to introduce you to Gyorgyi Szabo, who's the dean of our doctoral studies. All the students in our wisdom school know Gyorgyi, and very recently has taken up an additional, very important and strategic post for the university, and that is as Director of Academic Partnerships. So, Gyorgyi, welcome. We all look forward to your lecture.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you. And a big greeting to you all from Hungary. I really appreciate that you joined us today. I know it's a very important day for the Americans and, of course, for the whole world. So this lecture will take your mind off from the election ups and downs, if I may say. This lecture, you can find the condensed version of it on my website, which is www.universoul.eu. Universal is spelled with an S-O-U-L. And if you go under articles, you can find a very short essay on the same topic, which actually I was studying for my master's degree. And that's when I came across this book, and probably for the same reason as you got intrigued by what is this about, I got intrigued as well. And I just went into the whole subject matter, read numerous books, and I still love it. I still love the whole concept of cosmology and sexuality in Taoism. So this is the title of our lecture. The other thing I would like to draw your attention to, that if this subject matter is new to you, then please try not to concentrate just the newness of it, but to see that, you know, what the whole material evokes in you and how relevant it is to your life or the life in general. And one more footnote, this lecture will be purely academic. So if you're expecting anything else, then please switch to another channel. Right, let us begin. The literature review. Obviously, this is the book I am going to talk to you about. And further reading, which if you're interested in this subject, this is by Chuang Tzu, The Inner Chapters. This is about Taoist text, meditations, absolutely amazing literature, amazing photography about in the book. So please get it if you can. Then the other is by another Chinese scholar called Zhoulan Cheng. This is the Tao of Love and Sex, the Ancient Chinese Way to Ecstasy. This actually has very interesting photos, which I'm not going to show because you must get the book. The other is Livia Cohn, The Taoist Experience. This is an anthology. This is absolutely fabulous. Taoism, Chinese cosmology, fantastic, fantastic. The last two, or rather the last three, is Taoism in China. This is another fantastic material on Taoist philosophy and religion itself. And of course, I'm sure that many of you have the Tao Te Ching, and of course I use the I Ching as well. Right, let us start. So the book I actually showed you is The Art of the Bedchamber, the Chinese sexual yoga classics, including women's solo meditation text by Douglas Weil. And this was published in 1992 by the State University of New York Press. This is the first comprehensive anthology of the Chinese sexology classics, the world's oldest and most advanced tradition of sexual yoga. While remaining accessible to the general reader, the translation of these texts, almost never before translated in total, and some only recently unearthed in China, setting new standards of accuracy and scholarly felicity. This is a work of scholarship and not simply a book about the ancient Chinese view of sex. It contains intrinsic historical material regarding alchemy, qigong, and Chinese medicine as they relate to sex. Douglas Weil said in the introduction, Chinese sexual yoga arrives with a fresh perspective that will stimulate even the most seasoned sinologists and jaded satyrs. Sinologists are scholars of Chinese language, literature, and civilization. This source book in Chinese sexual yoga seeks to make a number of contributions. It is the first comprehensive collection of all published primary material to appear in any language, including Chinese. By representing the broadest possible spectrum of primary sources, the reader is able to witness the evolution of sexual practices in China. The section devoted to women's practices, though of the solo rather than paired persuasion, marks the debut of these texts in translation and highlights the importance of sexual energy and the reproductive function in Chinese meditation. Methodologically, this work is primarily philological and historical rather than anthropological or literary, and accordingly is not concerned with erotic literature or art, sexual mores or deviance, prostitution, concubinage, gay quarters or harem life, venereal disease, homosexuality, eunuchs, fetishism, or paraphernalia. Neither is it a systematic comparative study of Western and Chinese sexuality or of the esoteric practices of China and other non-Western traditions such as India, Tibet, or Japan. The focus of this work then is chiefly the written record of Chinese sexual yoga, which may be defined for the present as the practice of sexual intercourse for the purpose of intergender harmony, physical and psychological health, and ascended state of immortality. The empirical observation and analysis of human sexual response found in these documents sound positively modern, and paradoxically, the earliest texts are among the most strictly scientific in their outlook. However, to express our admiration for Chinese sexual practices by appealing to Western scientific categories as if these represented an absolute and objective standard of authority is like praising Confucius or Lao Tzu on the basis of their approximating Jesus. Suffice it to say here that the Chinese have done for sex what they have done for the soybean, taking the raw material of biology beyond the realm of simple stew. They have completely transformed it into a wide variety of nourishing new forms. Confucius said, eating and sex illustrate our intrinsic natures, and it is clear that from the point of view of East and West cultural diffusion, food was first, but sex may well be next. This book includes texts on the ethos of Chinese sexual practices, medicine and Taoism, such as position and vocabulary of sexual yoga, position of woman, ejaculation frequency and control, sexual energy, uniting yin and yang, the classic of Su Nu, essentials, secrets, and health benefits of the jade chamber, dangers and benefits of intercourse with women, and true transmission of the golden elixir. Our main protagonists are the Yellow Emperor, who is the third of 5 mythical emperors who ruled during the prehistoric period, 3rd millennium BC. His name first appears in the I Ching and later, coupled with that of Lao Tzu, is associated with the Taoist sciences of self-cultivation. Classical, medical, and sexological texts are framed as dialogues between the Yellow Emperor and specialist advisors. The other protagonist is Su Nu, who appears as goddess and sex initiatress in sexological works from the Sui period to the Ming. The Sui period was between 581 to 618 AD, and the Ming is 1368 until 1644. She was portrayed as a divine singer and musician during the time of the Yellow Emperor. So these are imaginary characters, not real people, just like Sherlock Holmes, Santa Claus, or the Tooth Fairy. You will hear me saying Tao or Taoism. So what is the difference between Tao and the Tao with the T? It is purely, the difference is the spelling. The Tao with a D is represented by a pinyin transliteration, and the Tao is the Vedas. That's only the difference. As you know, the Chinese writing are in pictograms, so not as the words that what we use. Righty-ho, so let's dig in. This is our Taoist Cosmology first lecture. The aim of this lecture is to explore the cosmic root, meaning and significance of the Taoist view of sexuality, which, according to my understanding, are closely related to and essentially derived from the Taoist cosmology of yin and yang harmony. The lecture will focus upon how major Taoist figures perceive the interaction between human sexuality and the underlying cosmic powers, how Taoist sexuality can be fully understood only in its metaphysical, philosophical view of the universe, and how human sexuality plays a significant part in maintaining or disturbing the harmony of the universe. Our two-part lecture will discuss the following: Taoism and the way of harmony, the cosmic foundations of Taoist sexuality, ethics, gender, and family, and the Taoist way of sexual practice. Taoism and the philosophy as a religion. Taoism has existed for more than 2,000 years, and it is not a single tradition. There are a vast range of theories and practices. Taoism may either mean a philosophical system, a religious institution, or a way of life, depending on which aspect of the tradition is emphasized. In China, Taoism is divided marginally between philosophical Taoism, Tao Chia, and religious Taoism, Tao Chiao. Tao Chia refers to the earlier form of Taoist thinking, which had its first manifesto in a book later known as the Tao Te Ching, The Way and Its Power, or The Way and Its Virtue, as you wish. This book contains sayings and aphorisms of a group of thinkers who contemplated Tao, the mysterious and unfathomed source of the universe. Although this book is attributed to Lao Tzu, supposedly an elder contemporary of Confucius between 551 and 479 BCE, scholars believe that this book has been collected and compiled during the early part of the Warring States period, which was between 475 and 221 BCE. Under Buddhist influence, it gradually formed different sects, emphasizing particular scriptures and rituals, incorporating monastic systems. Since the 13th century, religious Taoism has manifested itself in two major traditions, the Chuan Chen, or the Perfect Truth Taoism, and Qian Shi, the Heavenly Master Taoism. Tao Chia's main interest lies in exploring the cosmic principle or power by which the ideal way of life can be developed. Tao Chiao's pursuit is constantly carried on in the practices relating to longevity or immortality, enforced by institutionalized rituals and personal practices. Tao Chia normally shows a strong moral and political indifference, if not a total ignorance of and objection to politics and ethics, while Tao Chiao, appealing more to the layman, stresses the importance of moral commitment and political engagement. Tao Chia takes life and death as natural processes, regarding leading a natural life as the ideal, and considering social engagement the source of human corruption. Tao Chiao aims to avoid death and to prolong life, living forever and never dying, being taken therefore as the highest goal. Tao Chia and Tao Chiao are not two unconnected traditions. Both philosophers and religious masters look to the infinite and mysterious Tao for their solution of worldly problems and to the unification with Tao as their ideal. Taoist philosophy is carried out in Taoist practices, and Taoist religious belief is based on Taoist theories explored in philosophical works, and the integration and mutual penetration between these two traditions are clearly demonstrated in and greatly strengthened by the Taoist canon, the Tao Tsang. The Tao. It is the absence of definition that characterizes the Tao. It is unnameable, ineffable, and yet present in all things. It is far more than a mere principle. The first meaning of the character Tao is the way, something underlying the change and transformation of all beings, the spontaneous process regulating the natural cycle of the universe. It is in this process, along this way, that the world we see it, the creation of which we are an integral part, finds its unity. The Tao may make the whole, but is not itself the whole. Christopher Schriper says in The Taoist Body, published in 1985, the Tao gave birth to the one to the two produced the three, and the three the 10,000 being, says the Tao Te Ching. This generative action of the Tao is called its power, a word which is also often translated as virtue. But virtue comes from the Latin virtus, and the root vir, meaning male, whereas Tao's action, its creative power, is on the contrary feminine. The destruction of Taoism coincides with the progressive decline of the Chinese culture over the last centuries. One of the main factors of this decline is Western influence, others are Christianity and Marxism. Taoism never did have any strong organization. One of the major forms of its revival is to be found in the present widespread enthusiasm for health and longevity practices that go under the name of Qigong, exercises of the vital breath and energy. Taoist cosmology. Cosmological and theological concepts place at the beginning of heaven and earth the primordial chaos, a sphere or matrix that holds within itself the whole universe, but in a diffused, undifferentiated, and potential state. From this primordial state, the chi, the breath, or pure energy matter have not yet emerged. This primeval matrix is subject to the influence of the Tao. At a given point, the matrix comes to maturity, breaks up, and frees the chi contained within, which then escape and separate. The light, transparent chi rise and form heaven, and the heavy, opaque ones sink, forming earth. The process of creation manifests itself in a constant series of divisions into increasing complex categories. The chi diversify, such as stars, planets, constellations, etc. The two fundamental phases of the Tao's action are yin and yang, which serve to designate cold and hot, moon and sun, soft and hard, feminine and masculine, death and life. Their complementary opposites exist in everything, and their alternation is the first law of Chinese cosmology. When yin reaches its apex, it changes into yang, and vice versa. Everything changes and turns conforming to the process of the Tao. The cosmic foundations of Taoist sexuality. A common Taoist objective is the realization of longevity or even immortality within a mortal life, either through cultivating vital energy, qi, or by gaining access to an elixir of immortality. Taoist teachings of physical immortality did not necessarily imply that humans would no longer die. It aimed rather to prolong physical life in order to afford more time to cultivate a spiritual body. Humans are regarded as an integrated part of the cosmos, and the human body as a microcosm of the universe, which is not only governed by the same laws operating in the universe, but also is animated by the same forces that drive cosmic changes. The Taoist perception of life is therefore based on this concept of the universe, and Taoist thinking on human gender is closely related to its cosmological structure. Human activities, social or sexual, model themselves on what takes place on a much larger scale, and cosmic changes have huge impacts on human society, psychology, and sexuality. In Chinese thought, matter and spirit are one entity and not separate as in Western thinking. According to Chinese tradition, achieving Tao involves the whole person, including the body. Taoism does not require from the follower abstinence from earthly joys or the denial of desires. On the contrary, it advocates nurturing healthy living and enjoying earthly happiness. Embodied in the human body and in human life, Tao as the fundamental principle of cosmos, Qi as the primordial force of cosmic evolution, and yin-yang as the mutually interpenetrating powers within everything require cultivation in order to be fully realized and manifested. In other words, as part of the cosmos, human beings must refine their own cosmic elements to bring out the potential interrelativity and interdependence between cosmos and humanity. Taoist cosmology and sexuality are therefore mutually contained. Sexuality must be interpreted or explained by cosmology, and cosmology can be illustrated by sexuality. On the surface, Taoist discourses on sexuality seems to be totally concerned with individuals' cultivation of life and to be closely related to medical practices. At its roots, however, Taoists regard man and woman as human manifestations of yin and yang, and their relationships simply reflect the cosmic unity and harmony. It is a Taoist fundamental belief that just as the harmony of yin and yang is crucial for the whole universe, the relationship between the different genders is mutually supplementary and harmonious, and if disturbed, would cause the harmony of the universe to be disturbed as well. For a Taoist, the ultimate goal is to be one with Tao, which means to return from the phenomena to the origin, from the surface to the core of existence, and from the temporal to the eternal. As the source, Tao initiates the cosmic generating process from the one to the two cosmic powers, and through the cosmic intercourse of yin and yang, myriad things are born. Coming from the same Tao, yin and yang require each other for completion, and the one cannot be understood without the other. C.G. Jung, in his collected verse, pointed it out that from a consideration of the clans of the inner and the outer worlds, or rather from the conflicts between them, the possible and the necessary follow. Unfortunately, our Western mind, lacking all culture in this respect, has never yet devised a concept, nor even a name, for the union of opposites through the middle path, that most fundamental item of inward experience, which would respectively be set against the Chinese concept of Tao. Yin and yang represents organic polarity in the unity of a reciprocal relationship such as parents and children, self and others, heaven and earth, etc. The yin-yang polarity means that the world is in a process of transformation rather than of creation and destruction, thereby providing an illustrative framework for the universe. D.L. Hall, in Eros and Irony, pointed out that the great difficulty for the radical view of creativity is to account for the apparent interconnectedness of things, given the fact that each process is self-creative. It is the polar character of each process that establishes the ground for such an explanation. Although the idea of yin and yang polarity predates what we usually think of as the Taoist tradition, is not exclusively Taoist. Taoism has made it a key part of its own cosmic speculations and worldview. It has become an essential part of its cosmology and theory of sexuality. Yang is associated with heaven, representing the day, the sun, fire, the male and masculine qualities. Yin is associated with earth, manifested as night, the moon, water, the female and feminine qualities. Both male and female possess all these qualities, albeit in different degree or quantity. The cosmic yin and yang harmony can only be maintained if there is a harmony in nature, in the state, in the family, as well as in the human body, and damaging any of them would risk causing disorder in the whole universe. Qi and the necessity of cultivation. A Taoist is by definition a man or a woman who attempts to attain immortality in the present life, and seeking immortality takes various forms in a Taoist tradition, of which the inner cultivation of the vital force is of great importance for Taoist sexual practice. The vital force that can be cultivated within the body is called qi. Qi is the manifested form of Tao. Qi is originally referred to vapor, breath, and air. Qi is taken as the unifying power penetrating the whole universe, pervading the whole cosmos and all living and non-living things. The qi, through condensation and combination, forms various beings and things. There are many different species in the world which are all products of qi, or various manifestations of the original qi that is the source and resource of all energy and power, generating and regenerating the universe. Taoists, refining the qi within, working on a vital power, or qi kung, the art of practicing qi in the body, as the way of refining one's mind and body by controlling one's breath, and or the way of enhancing one's vital energy by taking in the cosmic power. As the principal life force without which humans are not able to survive, breath is one of the most accessible sources of energy. Chinese philosophy classifies all things as yin exhalation or yang inhalation. The act of lovemaking is most profoundly an act of energy respiration. One breathes in the other's yin, inhales this life energy to flow through the body, and exhales it back to the partner. Breathing exercises are a simple way to learn about the subtle workings of the Tao. It was observed that as breathing is vital for good health and consequently for long life, the regeneration of the body towards its elementary state should start with it. Tai Chi practices and special breathing exercises were designed to cure ailments and strengthen the organs. These exercises are meant to nourish the yin and yang of the human body, fusing and uniting the two energies to revert back to a primordial energy state which permeates and maintains all life. It was taught that the body is constituted in a way that channels energy along the meridians via which pure qi flows separately from the blood circulation. Meditation was one of the most useful tools to help Taoist masters to feel and to regulate this energy flow. Gymnastics, massage, and acupuncture were designed to open up these meridians from any blockages for the improvement of overall health and longevity. Nutrition was highly important in ancient China as a means improving health. It is necessary to control what one eats to increase the body's health status towards greater alignment with the Tao. The Taoist diet required abstention from grains, refrain from meat and alcohol for physical purification and metabolism to restore the body's original balance. Peng Tzu explained to the Yellow Emperor, by treasuring his qing, cultivating his spirit, and consuming herbs, a man may indeed attain long life. However, if he is ignorant of the Tao of intercourse, the taking of herbs will be of no benefit. The mutual fulfillment of man and woman is like the mutual dependence of heaven and earth. Because heaven and earth have attained the Tao of union, they are eternal. Because mankind has lost the Tao of intercourse, he suffers the onset of early death. If we could but avoid those things that gradually injure our bodies and learn the art of yin and yang, this would truly be the Tao of immortality. It is believed that qi can be cultivated because it is closely related with the human essence, qing, and the spirit, shen. Qing and shen are difficult to define precisely. As far as Taoist inner alchemy is concerned, qing can be roughly said to be the refined essence of qi. In the case of a man, his semen is a concrete manifestation of qing, and in the case of a woman, her blood is seen as her essence. Shen is the ruler of the body, guiding the process of cultivating qi and refining qing, but at the same time, it needs to be nourished and strengthened by qi and qing, by which the three treasures of qing, qi, and shen can be transformed into golden elixir. Sexual techniques. Taoist sexual techniques are just as ancient as the other physical practices and were also discussed in early manuscripts excavated from the Han Dynasty tombs. They form an integral part of Taoist practice, both individual and communal, and especially the celestial masters have been frequently attached for the allegedly orgiastic practice of harmonizing the energies as a form of ritual intercourse. According to a mythology, sexual techniques were first taught to the Yellow Emperor by a celestial lady called the Plain Maiden Sunu. The major sexual classics of China is accordingly called the Sunu Qing. Many other manuals followed in its footsteps, specifying not only various postures and methods of arousal, but also including warnings about health hazards and remedial uses of intercourse. Sexual practices have thus formed an important aspect of both the medical and religious traditions. The most important male tenet of Taoist lovemaking is to strengthen vitality by reverting his essence to nourish the brain and organs via the regulation of ejaculation, coitus reservatus, and by absorption of female yin essence to supplement his yang energy. According to Taoist tradition, male ejaculation and male orgasm are separate things. Ejaculation is not the pinnacle of pleasure, and this vital essence should not be wasted irresponsibly. In Taoism, the aim of sexual techniques is to revert the essence to support the body instead of flowing out and being lost. Sexual arousal and thus intercourse in this context serves to activate the essence that lies hidden deep in the body and bring it to the surface. Only when essence is tangible can it be reverted to further long life. Typically, manuals are directed to the male, encouraging men to select young partners and change them frequently, making the women give out their essence, but never ejaculating themselves. The interpretation of sexual vampirism has been offered for this behavior, but was rejected in favor of an understanding that sees the practices as a way of creating harmony between the sexes. Some readings have even gone so far as to suggest that they pay tribute to the importance of women in Taoism. Having mastered the art of non-ejaculation orgasm, man can preserve their vital essence while satisfying their partner as often as she wants. In this way, they are both benefiting from each other's essence from each other's sexual energy. All Taoist texts put high significance on frequent lovemaking, but emphasize infrequent ejaculation. The more the man makes love, the more he preserves his young essence, bringing him closer to immortality. It was documented that the Yellow Emperor mounted 1,200 women and thus achieved immortality, whereas the ordinary man cuts down his life with just one, says Douglas Wilde in his book. Sunu also gave detailed instructions on how many times a month men of different ages should ejaculate for optimal health, and not just for the purpose of having children. The health status of both partners, the time of the day, weather conditions, and the positions of the planets at the time of conceiving were important to avoid physical deformities in a newly born child. Many different aspects of a woman, such as her age, looks, habits, beard, as well as weather conditions and whether she gave birth already, should be considered carefully in choosing her or not for intercourse. Sunu gave guidance on the longevity of foreplay, rhythms of penetration, and stages of withdrawal. Her advice in a classic of Sunu covered what to do and what not to do in order that one's lifespan increase. Her expert advice included: to change female partners brings increased benefit. More than 10 partners in one night is especially good. If one constantly has intercourse with the same woman, her qing qi will become weak, and this is not only of no great benefit to the man, but will cause her to become thin and emaciated. Ideally, women can do the very same thing, using men, preferably young, to garner essence and revert it to nourishing their longevity. In this case, however, Chinese folklore has created the character of the fox lady, a supernatural fairy who exploits men sexually and makes them wither away and die. Zhou Cheng, a Taoist scholar, explains that women played a very important and equal role in the philosophy of Taoist lovemaking. Some took advisory roles to the emperor, and some became masters of the tradition in their own right. For yin and yang to be in harmony, a man must fully satisfy his woman. The sexual union of man and woman mirror yin and yang on a cosmic level. Their distinctive individual attitudes to life, harmonized through Taoist sexual practice, help create harmony on earth. There were also meditational practices where the reversal of sexual energy was undertaken without a partner. This solo activity may seem to echo the Christian tradition of priestly celibacy. However, the latter was always about denial and suppression, presenting a path to salvation via righteous abstention of all things carnal. For the Taoist, whether alone or with partners, the physical aspects of his sexuality were always to be embraced as part of the route to optimal health, spiritual growth, and development. I would like to finish this lecture with Douglas Wilde's words. The sexual union of man and woman is the Tao of yin and yang. Sex is yin and yang in action. Yin and yang are sex writ large. The sexual adept could no more enter the bedchamber free of centuries of cosmological baggage than could the connoisseur of art behold a painting in a vacuum. The followers of sexual school of Taoism encourage the development of a sexual sensibility that invested every act of coition, indeed, every organ, posture, and sensation with an indelible metaphysical significance. Man and woman are heaven and earth. Heart and genitals are fire and water. Sexual arousal is the rising sun. Cosmic configurations and celestial movements are reflected in the sex act. What is above acts and what is below follows. This is the way of all things. The individual's role is not larger than life, but one could not forget that it was certainly part of the larger life of the universe. Thank you for staying with me. I promise that the second lecture will have juicier quotations from the book. Now over back to you to Jim Garrison and whoever would like to make any comments.
Thank you, Gyorgyi. This has been a very provocative lecture. Thank you very, very much. I have been myself reading a book in part in preparation for your lectures on the Taoist view of sacred sexuality. And before asking you a question or two, I just wanted to underscore the Taoist understanding of the male potency. You know, that in every ejaculation, the average man puts out between 200 and 500 million sperms. And that means that one man, if all those sperms were properly distributed, would be able to sire the entire current population of the United States at 330 million people. And the Taoists make quite a bit about this fact because, as you're pointing out, sexuality is the carrier of life. And in every sperm, every act of sexual intercourse, there is literally an atomic bomb explosive level of life energy being literally released from the male body. It's estimated that a man releases enough sperm in his lifetime to sire over 1 trillion human beings if they were all impregnating a woman. So that the power of sexuality is far more in the Taoist tradition than the current Western superficial model of having sex and sort of being done with it. And from the Taoist point of view, we dishonor our own sexuality by being so promiscuous. And the second comment I would make, and then would love to hear your point of view, is because of its potency, the Taoists took the position, as did the tantric practitioners in India. And this is, of course, one of the basic reasons why priests in the West are celibate. That there has been a very deep-seated belief that if you can somehow bring your seed up your spine into your brain through a conscious meditative technique, particularly when aroused in the presence of a woman, you're actually taking that extraordinary potential of life force, and rather than just releasing it, you bring it up and it goes right into your brain, and right at the base of your brain, at the top of your spine, is what they call the jewel seat, and bringing up that elixir into the base of your spine and then radiating it up through your third eye and your crown chakra repeatedly over time is remarkably curative, precisely because the male sperm is so potent in its life-giving capacity. So I think that what you're bringing to our attention is really quite extraordinary, and it is the antithesis of everything that the Western consumerist model educates people about sexuality.
Totally.
So I first want to just applaud your audacity in being so explicit and being so bold, because I think you're drawing attention to a mechanism, a meditative mechanism, that according to the ancient Taoists could actually, if it was practiced with enough discipline over time, could actually lead to a form of immortality. Because you're always bringing your own life force into yourself, which isn't to say you don't, upon occasion, release it into a woman. But one of the reasons why we are suffering from overpopulation, which is one of the banes of our planet at this moment, with nearly 8 billion people and rising, is because we're not paying proper attention to the sacredness of our own sexuality. And I've obviously, as a man, I've emphasized the male component of this, but as you're pointing out, the female aspect and the way the woman cultivates and curates the enormous potency of her sexuality is actually the yin and the yang, and together it's the Tao. So I've just emphasized the male because I'm a male, but I would just close by saying it's equally true on the female side of the great Tao. So anyway, just put those thoughts out. I would love your comments.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jim. Very articulate, and thank you very much for letting me do this presentation, because obviously this is a subject matter that can be sensitive to some ears. However, this is just as ancient and as anything else. With regard to the male and female energies, obviously we talked about the male energy. We will talk about a little bit more from the female point of view, and how actually Taoists regarded the female energy much higher in quality in every sense than a male's energy. Yeah. And actually in the classics of the Sunu, in this book, it is well documented that the Yellow Emperor was told that choose women with almost not much comprehension, because the women shouldn't really understand what's going on. The less the woman understands, the less can she actually steal the knowledge and the wisdom, because then she can take it away and she can practice it on her own. So we will talk about this more at the next lecture, and because I would like to present some ideas, and obviously some of them are very controversial, and really it has been attacked not just by Confucianists, but other religious formations that came later on in the last few centuries, and that's why I think it's a very, very important text to read again, and it really has been read by many. For example, one Chinese scholar by the name of Montauk Chia, you may have heard of him. He was actually leading an organization in New York. I'm not sure whether he's still doing that. When I was writing this essay 6 years ago, I actually searched on Google, and he was still there, and his wife as well. And he published 2 books on the multi-orgasmic male and the multi-orgasmic female. So it's a very, very interesting book to read.
That's what I'm reading.
Hey!
Book.
Yeah, it's excellent book.
And this is the male sort of version, but he has another one on the female.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's really, it's so much. Obviously, we could do a whole course on this, because there are chapters dedicated to how to use this melanged energy to better to heal your organs and how to really harmonize your whole body. And it is actually fascinating. It really, really is fascinating. And while I was writing this paper, of course, some of the things were coming back to me, that new sciences now talks about the energy, the vibration, and the matter, and the Tao, and the Akashic field, and the 0 point field, and the chi, and everything is a change, and you cannot stop it. So I think there is so much relevant actually now with new sciences, not orthodox sciences, I may say. So there is so much actually we can learn from it, and also there is the other aspect I would like to talk about probably at the next lecture is the different respect between the man and the woman. Yeah. So they actually elevate the lovemaking from the, purely reproducing, and from just lovemaking in a sense of I love the other and the other loves me. So this is really elevating to that level when one's physical body is elongated. So while doing that, the spiritual augmentation can be processed, can be developed. So that I think it is really, really wonderful. And then it's nice to see that, of course, the Qigong and the Tai Chi that is coming in more and more to the Western understanding. But this, I think, should be more explained and exercised as well.
Great. Well, thank you. One additional question. Did you do any work or research comparing the Taoist Chinese view of these matters with the Hindu Indian tantric tradition?
No, but I would love to. No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
That would be really interesting to find out, because the Hindu rishis went very, very deep into these matters as well. And I haven't researched that question either, but it would be worth maybe one of our students to do a research paper on a comparison of the two schools.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Well, let's open it up. We've got, I see Dave McQuarrie is there, and we have one call-in listener. Who's the person on the phone call?
Jim, we don't have a way to know what the call-in listener's name is.
Oh, maybe. Well, then we have a surprise guest, Gyorgyi. Maybe you could ask the call-in listener if they have a question or comment. Maybe they could identify themselves.
Yeah, I'm sure that the listener heard you. I don't know what it is I can actually do, because I really cannot see who is on this call.
Well, Dan has to. Can you get them on the line, Dan?
I'm not able to do that.
Oh,
you're not able to bring them so they can talk?
Not a call-in listener. Only people on a computer.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, whoever you are on the phone, sorry about that. So Dave, do you have any comment or question for Dr. Szabo?
Yes and no, I have comments. For me, it's an absolutely fascinating field. And it's been a great disappointment in my life that I've never found a way to experientially explore effectively. And partly that has been because of the strange culture in which we live in North America, that is so focused on the physical aspect of sexuality and gives little attention to the spiritual aspects. Again, I don't know how to phrase it. There's just been, my own life has simply not gone in that direction. There's been two aspects of my life that have been restricted in that sense. And one is the exploration of sexuality, and the second has been the exploration of psychedelic drugs, both of which I need another lifetime in which to explore. So unfortunately, I don't have much to add to this other than my great intrigue.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for your comments. Well, I must say that when I understand the culture we actually live in, and how such sexual yoga classics viewed. When I was studying this subject, I actually bought both of the books, The Multi-Orgasmic Man and The Multi-Orgasmic Women. And I thought, I'm just going to follow the exercises in the book, and then just take it from there. And once I get to New York, I'm just going to go to the Montauk Chia course. But that sounded a little bit weird to me, I must say, because I just thought, well, kind of like being there with also, this is the conditioning we have, isn't it? That I was already thinking that, oh, well, I don't love that person. How can I, merge my energy with his, and then I really got fascinated by the whole concept. Yet I still had to get to another level where I was like, well, this is not about whether it's called John or Philip or whatever. It was about his male energy. And then cultivating it together. But I never got to, I got to New York so many times, but obviously I never got to Montauk Chia's course. But his book and his wife's book is really fascinating. It is actually based on this thousands years old kind of scientific way of cultivating one's inner energy.
Yes.
Well, I think
nothing more to add.
I think that the point you're making, Dave, is actually quite poignant and quite sad.
Absolutely.
What Gyorgyi's response adds to the sadness. That we in the West are so disconnected from our bodies. And we hold our bodies with such, I would say, shame, that we're either completely puritanical or we're pornographic and violent as two ends of the spectrum with very little kind of in between. And one of the things I've always appreciated about the Taoist tradition, and I consider the Tao Te Ching and the I Ching, these great Chinese classics, particularly the Taoist tradition, they allow life to be what it is, in the fullness of what it is, without any sense of do's and don'ts and guilt and moralisms. And I think that's one reason why the Taoist treatment of sexuality is really sublime.
Yeah.
And it's honoring and it's affirming. And yet we in the West feel almost dirty even picking up the book and reading it.
Yeah.
We can't conceive of sublimating our own seed into our own self to bring ourselves to a higher spiritual level. Yeah. And yet that is the essence of the Taoist teaching. And of course, the great tantric tradition in India, which is almost completely absent in any traditions that I know of in the West.
Mm.
I totally agree with you, Jim. I have known people in the West who have been able to do the exploration, but they are few and far between. And in the West, we have so much psychological work to do before we can get to that spiritual tradition. And certainly, as you know, that has been my focus during my 25 years of being a psychotherapist. And even now, I would love to be able to explore, but the limitations, there are so many limitations to that.
Yeah. So, Gyorgyi, do you want to make some concluding comments and maybe tee us up for next time?
Well, as I said before, I'm actually holding back some juicy bits for the second part.
You mean it gets juicier?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I really felt that I need to lay a good foundation in order to really understand what is it actually Taoist cosmology and sexuality, because without understanding the cosmology you really cannot get Taoist sexuality. That's why I really focused on it so much, and of course I introduced what Taoist sexuality is, but next time we will actually go in deeper.
No pun intended.
Thank you for listening, and have a good election day. And I hope you enjoyed our lecture. And I look forward to seeing you all in December.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Szabo.
Thank you, Jim.
And in conclusion, all the Americans, be sure to vote. Vote early and often. And we'll see you next month. Thank you all so much.
Bye-bye.